In this video, we're going to explore one of the workflows within D3Denture. This is the custom tray workflow. So we'll go ahead and get started here just by clicking off to the side and choosing the custom tray workflow from the menu over here. First thing we need to pick is D3Denture. Then it gives us the options of the different workflows, and we're going to hit custom tray. The next thing it's going to ask is for a case name. In fact, I'll just read this. Please enter a name for the custom tray and choose a default save location before pressing the Create Case button below. Once the case has been created, press the next button to continue. So we need a case name. I'm going to put custom tray test. And we can also choose our save location, but I already have it in a place, in a preference that's been preset, which you can do. So if there's a place that you always like to save your files or export your files, you can set that in the preferences. I've already done that, so it's good to go. Alternatively, if I want to choose a different location other than the one that I have in my preferences, I can just click on this button, choose a new one, and the preference would not be overwritten. So I got my name here. Everything's looking good. Create new directory to put my case files in. That sounds fine. And I'll go create case. First thing I see is that it's created a case ID for me. This is a small series of digits and numbers. It's a unique identifier for the case. It can help with case tracking and other things like that. I'm going to go ahead and click Next. The next step here, use the button below to set your imported scan to the correct label if necessary. So kind of getting ahead of ourselves, let's click on Import Models. And I have some models ready to go here. Put these two. And for the custom tray, I think we're just going to do one at a time. So we'll start with the maxillary arch. I can select which one I want here, but I'm going to go the upper arch. Jaw type is maxilla. Dentition, dentulous. And the model type, that's a model and not an impression. Sometimes you can, if you take an alginate impression or any other type of physical impression, it is possible to scan that impression in, and then you'd have an inverse of what you'd be looking at. So in that case, you would want to check the impression, but this is just a straight scan of the arches. So that's model, and I'm going to hit next. Actually, before I do, if I didn't pick anything here, and I try to hit next, it won't allow me to, because it says, hey, you need to go ahead and check or pick what model type this is. So it's kind of helpful to know, oh yeah, I'm not going to get ahead of myself. There's no way I can make too many mistakes going forward. So I'm going to go ahead and change that model, and we're good to go. Next. The next thing here, we need to orient the model. So I'm just going to click that button, Orient Model. On the bottom right, it gives us some instructions here. Click on the right tuberosity. Go ahead and click on that. And it says click on the left tuberosity. You can do that. Size of papilla and midline. And then commit. Brings us back to the main workflow. Everything looks like it's checked here. I can click next and make sure. Sure enough, everything looks good. The next steps here, it says clean up the model. We can click this, and that will bring me into a tool that will help me kind of get rid of some of these jagged edges. If there's little wings from the scan or any irregularities, you can use this to go in there and kind of clean some of that up. So I'll quickly demonstrate that. For instance, let's say this part right here we didn't want. I'm going to go delete painted, and that trims that up. And everything looks actually pretty good here, so I don't want to delete too much more than that. But it's very similar to any type of paint and delete. And there's also a lasso where you can kind of select things like this. Makes it a little bit easier, a box, and a line tool. But we are good here. Everything looks fairly well trimmed, so I'm going to go commit. Now that we've done that, we're going to pick our tray insertion axis. So I'm looking at this as if I were the tray being inserted here. It's going to remove undercuts where they exist and it's not visible to my eye right here in this view. So I'm going to kind of align it just from the top and capture view on the upper left here. You don't really notice anything that's happened right away, but on this upper right, it kind of gives me a preview and it shows me in red where these areas of undercut are. So I can kind of quickly check by clicking up here to see, is my insertion axis relatively even? Is it balanced? Does it look like there's undercuts more on one side than the other? Should I tweak this axis view? But quite frankly, this is looking pretty good. So I can also kind of move this around to check like this, but everything looks nice. I'm going to go commit. Okay. The wax spacer, that is how much of a impression gap we would really want between the surface of the palette and the gums here and the tray. So we're going to say 1.5 is fine. That's default value. And we can also paint selective offset pressure. So this is for doing variable impression gap spacing for one thing. And then on the flip side of that, you're also allowed to do tissue stops and hard tissue stops as well. So for instance, I want there to be stops on this tray. So I want areas where there's going to be 0 millimeters of wax spacer. So I'm going to say right here, and kind of do the tripod effect. Now there could be other areas, not necessarily in this case, but if you had dentition present, you may want less of a spacer in those areas than you do on the edentulous areas. So you could kind of paint the teeth areas to make the wax spacer a little bit more in those areas, or wherever you want. But that's the idea there. I'm just going to actually pretend like this is the some teeth here so you can get a peek of what that looks like. And go commit. So it should be basically 3 stops and an area that's a little bit less thin than the rest. Looking good? I'm going to hit next. And that's exactly what we see here. It looks like those areas that I painted that were below the middle range there kind of just has a slight indent. And then the areas where I wanted complete stops, those are fully depressed in. So this is essentially like you're looking at your wax that you would have put traditionally in a lab setting on your model. So this is what technically you're looking at here, or theoretically. I'm going to hit Mark Tray Border. I'll spend a couple seconds here going around the edges. Almost done. At the very end, you just can kind of see where this green line connects the two, and you click there, and it completes the circle. Then I hit next. I click the interior region. This is the area where I want my tray, so I'm going to click in here. That looks wonderful. I'm going to hit next. Okay, we're getting somewhere. It's looking good. I'm going to hit next again. And we see we have some more options here for our tray thickness. 1.5 sounds good to me. We do want retention holes. All these default values for the holes are fairly straightforward, but you can toy around with those if you want. All these defaults are fine for maybe I'll bring the hole diameter up just a little bit to 2. Other than that, everything's looking pretty good. Now I'm going to hit next. So the retention holes are the perforations that go through the tray that you typically see. You don't have to have them if you don't want, but you can also include them. Okay, this is looking very, very nice, in fact. A nice little roll around the borders of the tray, just minimal, but very nice. The perforations look good. Everything looks good. We're just going to go ahead and place handle. Oh, we can put the name here. We're going to say custom tray test again and place handle. Some more options here, but I'm just going to go OK for the default. And it looks like it placed it almost right where it needs to be automatically. I'm just going to bring this down just a little bit. And there we go. It has our text on the handle. Take a quick look all the way around. I can also, adjust this however I'd like. But this is looking great. I could edit the handle, change some of the parameters. Like I said, I'll quickly show you what that does. I kind of bring that out like this. Things like that. But I'm happy with this. This looks good. So I'm going to hit next. And here we are, the final custom tray with our stops, the variable impression gap, and the handle. And the text is there. Very nice. A little tough to see. There it is. Okay, so that is our custom tray. That's looking very good. I'm going to hit Save to File. Export directory, and it just saves it right away for me. Great. It tells me models are exported, and I am done with this custom tray.